So, rumour has it we're getting a The Last of Us remake. Bloomberg has published a rather scathing report into the working conditions and morale among several of the development studios that fall under Sony's vague umbrella. Within this report there is an offhand reference to a remake of The Last of Us, so naturally that's all that the gaming press as a whole has been reporting on. This is a shame, as the report primarily focuses on how the developers are feeling frustrated that Sony is so focused on chasing the next big blockbuster that there's no room for experimentation or the establishment of new IPs. Ultimately, I agree with them. I'd rather we didn't get yet another version of The Last of Us, and I'd prefer if Sony's developers were instead given a little more freedom to make cool, new, weird stuff that might fail. I can completely understand the logic of remaking The Last of Us. Many commenters have been quick to point out that Sony is trying to turn the game duology into a multimedia franchise with a new HBO series on the way. The logic is that when people have finished watching The Last of Us, the TV show, they will immediately want to play the game. And as I explored in our video on backwards compatibility, Sony prefers getting a brand new $60 for a remake over letting people just play old games. Can you imagine playing the original The Last of Us from 2013? Gross, am I right? Sure, audiences could try playing The Last of Us Part 2 instead, but there's a problem with this. The TV show will focus on Joel and Ellie, with their dynamic from the first game, and, spoiler alert, Joel is not a huge part of the second game. It's also somewhat unlikely that he'll be returning for Part 3. So, to truly capitalise on the HBO series, Sony likely wants people to have a way to play the first game again, preferably on the PS5. A Last of Us Part 1 remake is safe. There's an established template to work from, so development is relatively stress-free. I won't say easy, because no game development is easy. The game franchise is also a big seller, so it'll definitely make lots and lots of money. I can't fault this logic from a business standpoint. That said, The Last of Us is in danger of what I like to call Peter Parker syndrome. 60 years ago, Peter Parker was a high school student who got bitten by a radioactive spider and became the Human Spider. Or because that name sucks, the Amazing Spider-Man. In the years since, he's graduated, gone to college, buried the love of his life, married a supermodel, been cloned, retired, died a couple of times, had his body stolen by an octopus man, revealed his identity to the public, watched Aunt May die a few times, got a magic divorce, and become a mentor to a new teenage Spider-Man now that he himself is older and wiser. And yet, in his most recent cinematic appearance, 60 years after his debut, Peter Parker is still a high school student. Every few years, across various comics, TV shows, movies, and video games, Peter Parker's life resets, Groundhog Day style, so that he can retread his origin story. The character always ends up right back where he started, because that's what people think of when they think of Spider-Man. So The Last of Us Part 1 tells a story with a narrative that moves forward, and Part 2 takes that story in new, often disturbing and uncomfortable directions. By which I mean Ellie does some messed up stuff to her enemies. But the character that people know best from these games is still Joel, who bows out after only one game. The HBO series will focus on him, and so will the remake. While I'm sure we will eventually get The Last of Us Part 3, the face of the franchise will always be Joel, and to a lesser extent for reasons unknown, Elliot Page. And we'll probably always be reliving Joel's journey whenever there's a new adaptation. The world that Naughty Dog has created is far more varied and interesting than the small group of survivors we've seen thus far. There's a lot of different stories that could be told, focusing on new characters with their own motivations and story arcs. Part 2 clearly shows this. Retelling the same story yet again feels like a waste of an opportunity to expand the world. Yes, it makes sense from a temporary business perspective in the short term, but it does Sony a disservice in the long run if their developers are forbidden from making new stuff. That's the crux of Bloomberg's article, by the way. There's a lot of talk about how Sony is so busy chasing the next big blockbuster game that they're not giving studios room to breathe, to try new things, or to establish new IPs. Sony is effectively narrowing their pool of game properties, focusing on what has proven to have worked already, rather than letting anyone take a chance on something new. And yes, again, I understand this from a business perspective. Easy wins are far more commercially viable than risky ventures. Games are increasingly expensive to produce, so Sony wants to maximise their profits through focusing on a few ginormous tentpoles that will guarantee a return on investment. The problem with this is that if all the resources keep being pooled into a few large, supposedly foolproof games, it only takes one or two failures to significantly dent a company. I'm not concerned about Sony making a financial loss on any of these games. I'm more worried that, with the pressure of each of these games succeeding, we as gamers are missing out on some cool, weird stuff that might make the games industry far more diverse and interesting. According to Bloomberg, Sony's focus on exclusive blockbusters has come at the expense of niche teams and studios within the PlayStation organisation, leading to a high turnover and less choice for players. Last week, Sony reorganised the development office in Japan, resulting in mass departures of people who worked on less well-known but acclaimed games, such as Gravity Rush and Everybody's Golf. The company has informed developers that it no longer wants to produce smaller games that are only successful in Japan. And let's face it, AAA games already have a problem with homogeneity. They're all action games, most of them shooters, that are cut from more or less the same cloth. Take a quick look at the indie sphere, and it's clear that there are a lot of different genres that gaming can explore, but the biggest, most expensive games are pigeonholed into sticking to an established pattern that hasn't deviated that much for the entirety of this century. If Sony's unwilling to experiment or fund smaller, more varied games, then there's absolutely no chance that the company will stumble across something new and wonderful that reshapes the industry. Sony will absolutely be on the back foot if and when the market shifts. I'm not saying that Sony are going to suffer too much from their rather narrow business strategy. I just think that the medium as a whole will suffer if the company is only willing to fund sequels and remakes. Now, it's time for me to be a hypocrite and stare adoringly at the artwork for the Alex Kidd in Miracle World remake. While I'm doing that, why not hit the subscribe button for more long-winded analysis of obvious industry trends?